This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Well, I mean, it's Christmas break. No more. It's funny how this year is gone. We're in a rut for those first 7, went on a really, really nice run, and then actually continued to play pretty darn good hockey and just was not rewarded on the scoreboard or, like in the final result of games. So that was kind of tough. I just felt like we needed to be rewarded here before the break. And you think about it, 5 periods ago, and we're down 3-0 to Carolina. And 5 periods later, we've got 4 more points than we had, 48 hours ago. So that was big for us, big for the guys, especially going into the break. You hate rolling into these on a downer. So good all the way around, and early Christmas present for the coach.
Early Santa came early for Coach Cooper. Is that what we took from that press conference at the end of the game?
Yeah, a present inside were 2 points, and it was very nicely decorated. Like that was not an ugly win. That was a textbook win.
Yeah.
So Coop was happy.
It's incredible what a couple of games can make for the standings, too.
I have a feeling John Cooper might actually listen to Power Lunch. He goes into his office. He shuts the door. Actually, his office is a communal office, so he built an invisible door.
Love it.
He goes back and listens to previous shows because, of course, I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek, but, I mean, what have we been talking about on this program? 2-6-1 in December could have looked a lot better.
Sure.
They played better than 2-6-1, and that's what he said.
Yeah.
He didn't like the beginning of the year. Neither did we. They kind of earned what they got, which is to say not much, right? 4 points in the first 7 games. But 15-3 was legit.
Yeah.
It's not like they were rope-a-doping their way into 15 wins in 18 games. In most of those games, they were deserving of the 2 points. They were doing mostly good things. They, for sure, in a lot of the games, are outplaying their opponent, which was kind of my takeaway from the game last night, which I tagged my extra shift column saying that.
Sure.
It was reminiscent of their 15-3 stretch because those games, a lot of them, looked like last night, where they had the upper hand, they leaned on the other team. Often they got the lead, they D'd up. The other team didn't really generate a lot. The Lightning kind of were the better team in most of the metrics that you would look at the end of the game. And that was the bulk of their 15-3. And then they hit December. And what happened? Did December look more like 1-4-2? Or did it actually look more like 15-3? It wasn't as good as 15-3 because they weren't quite there, finishing chances, or they had a key mistake that cost them and haunted them.
Could we say in between, maybe? Maybe in between?
It was in between, but I think it leaned closer. Like the way they were playing was so much better than the first few games of the year. I think that's Coop's point. But it wears on you. And going back to the Saturday game, I think that's why, to me, that game was so important. Because it allowed the Lightning to start feeling good about what they were doing, especially at home. They'd had a couple of good wins on the road, but it had been tough sledding at home. And they got that big win against an excellent team, Carolina, scored 6 of the final 7 goals in the game, rallied twice, and I thought it just carried right into this game last night. Where, look, I mean, the Blues did drop a 6 note, get my pun there, on the Panthers, also on Saturday. So it's not like they could be taken lightly. No team should be taken lightly. But we talked about their metrics, the Blues metrics, on the show yesterday. This is a team that has had problems this year. Masked them a little bit with their record. They've gotten a lot of games to overtime that they haven't won. But you kind of have the feeling if the Lightning were able to do a lot of the things that they have been doing this year, they would put themselves in a position to maybe get the lead and force the Blues to play catch up which the Blues are not very good at playing catch-up. I mean, they're one of the lowest scoring teams in the NHL, and the game played out exactly that way. The Lightning scored in the first shift of the game. They were leading from whatever it was, 21 seconds into the game.
Yeah.
Talking about how to script a game, that's how to script a game. And the other key point, when the Blues did score, the Lightning had a response. Now, it wasn't on the very next shift like in that Carolina game with the McDonough goal, but it was soon after. It was less than 2 minutes later. They got that goal back, and that was kind of the gut punch for the Blues. They know they struggled to score. They do. It's like they're looking at a 3-1 deficit after 40 minutes. And then it became 4-1. And, I mean, you just got the sense, Greg, that there was no way the Blues were going to come back in the game last night. Once it became a multi-goal lead after they got their goal, certainly.
I think that's fair. To expand on this point a bit, and then we can get into more of the game, and we are taping this show.
Yes.
If people do want to react
Our
afterwards, hit us up
final
on Twitter.
show before the holidays.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then we'll be back next Monday. Of course, there's a game.
Power Lunch fans are getting coal in their stocking.
No Cole.
They're going to have to go on a Power Lunch hiatus. We're going on a hiatus.
Maybe we'll play some reruns.
Well, I don't know. Fans may suffer withdrawal. Our show doesn't really work with reruns, though, does it? Because
maybe just keep playing this one at Bolts Radio if you want to respond. Let me just say this too, because I think we like to sometimes the big picture approach. Sometimes that's negative. I think sometimes it's positive. I think oftentimes we try to really have the pulse of the team without being completely over-emotional, hyperbolic. Mm-hmm. Where the Lightning are this year, I think you do have to take a step back and say, they've kind of done it the hard way. And that if you believe in karma, breaks, they may be due for some of that. And let me expand on this. The injuries have been a problem this year. They've had guys in and out of the lineup. They've had star players in and out of the lineup. Mm-hmm. It has led to a lot of great depth that we have discovered, meaning the Lightning, and that has allowed them to keep their head above water. And where we sit right now here, December 23rd, they're in second place in the Atlantic Division. That's been an unusual situation, the amount of injuries they've had to face. I think they've also had some games where breaks haven't necessarily gone their way. Goaltenders have played very well.
Yes.
I'm not saying I don't think that's normal consistently. I feel like they've run into a lot of goaltenders who played above their heads. Does that come back to the norm a little bit in the second half? Let's just call it the second half of the year after the Christmas break. Maybe, maybe not. Individually, it feels like the Lightning's big guns have had good seasons, but not great seasons yet. Mm-hmm. And some of that may be the injuries. Like Victor Hedman may not show us the real Victor Hedman until he gets back and maybe even come playoff time. I think it's fair to say. Braden Point has not gotten on track. You take a look at the league leaders in points. Mm-hmm. The Lightning have one guy in the top 10.
Yeah.
And even I think we would sit here and say Kucherov, he's obviously averaging a point per game, but it hasn't felt like a dominant Kucherov run.
He's used to being in the rarefied air occupied by McDavid and McKinnon.
That's exactly right.
They are up there.
That's exactly right.
You might even make your argument that they are having a better than normal start to the season. But Kucherov usually would be in the vicinity of those two other players, and he's not.
He's a point per game guy, which is fine. By the way, his plus minus has gotten pretty good there.
He's recovered from the early tough start. And Point is getting there, too. I mean, when Point came back from his injury, I think he was at minus 12. He may be minus 6, minus 7 now. So, I mean, he's definitely got it to single digits. Yeah.
Jake Gensel.
He's not always out there when a goal is being scored where he would get a plus, but he's out there far less when the other team is scoring.
It's a fair point.
Which is almost, I mean, it's not more important because Braden Point needs to be on the ice when goals are going in. But
it's a fair point.
For him to basically have whittled his minus in half is good in a short period of time since he's come back from injury.
Gensel, I don't think he's ever going to be in the top 10 in scoring, but, he's the second closest to Kuch. I think he's like 25th, 26th in the league. And then you have Hagel, who's in the top 40, but he's a plus 18, but he's been injured.
He's had a weird year.
So that's what I mean. Like in Bjorkstrand, if you want to go beyond the superstars, Nick Paul, Bjorkstrand, guys that you're used to seeing, and Bjorkstrand maybe starting to come out of it. I think you brought up the right word. It's been a weird year for a lot of these guys, but the one thing they've done has been able to win games. And I don't know what to make of it. Do the hockey gods post-Christmas shed light on the Lightning in a more fond way? I don't know. But what I can tell you is I feel like they've had to face a lot of adversity this year so far.
Yeah.
And they've come out looking pretty good. Now, and again, face-offs and power play, even though they were able to rectify that a little bit last night, of course, with a couple of goals. They've struggled in some areas. They've had to deal with adversity in others. And here they are in second place in the Atlantic. And I just think you have to take a step back and say, okay, this is a good team that I think has the chance to get better. And I'm not sure every team can say that right now in the Eastern Conference, understanding that everything is so close, that I think the Lightning have the opportunity here, partner, to really play some tremendous hockey when guys get healthy, start to produce the way they typically do, and improve in some areas that I think is fair to say they can. Take a step back and say, yeah, this has actually been a pretty good start to the year for the Lightning, and I think it's one of the reasons why we believe John Cooper should be given more credit for where the team is today, because this has been, as you put it, in some ways, just a weird year, how things have started. But they've kind of overcome that a little bit here.
Well, I mean, what they've done is defend. They've defended. And I know this is on repeat. Steve could cue me up saying the same thing over and over and over.
Go ahead,
over
Steve.
Again,
play a repeat, please.
It remains true. If you can defend, you put yourself in a position to get points, even if other parts of your game aren't quite in sync. And there have been points this year where the Lightning's game has been in sync in every area. I think it was for a lot of that 6-month period or whatever it was. 6-week period when they went 15-3. But they've maintained a very good standard. Sometimes it's been exceedingly high. Sometimes it's wobbled a little bit. Maybe the goaltending has bailed them out. But the number of games where they've just been a train wreck defensively, like those are really few and far between. So as other things have happened, like they've had injuries, guys have been hot, guys have not been hot. I mean, I mentioned Hagel. Hagel didn't have a goal for the first 8 games. I think his first goal was in the 9th game, or maybe it was the 8th game of the year. I can go back and look. It coincided with them starting to win, right? And then he went on a heater.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of his goals came in a relatively short period of time where he was getting like 2 goals, 1 goal, maybe no goal, then 2 goals again. And he was, vaulting up the scoring charts, and then he started having injury problems. And I mean, it slowed up for him a little bit. He's also usually benefiting, honestly, if the Lightning are up. He's out there with the net empty, and he's gotten some empty net goals the last couple of years, which has helped offset his lack of offense relative to other top scorers on the power play, because he doesn't get as many power play goals as other guys. Because, I mean, let's face it, he's very rarely on the top unit. Sometimes he is. And when he is, he's not really in a position to score. Like, he's not in the bumper. He's not set up for a one-timer. He scored against Pittsburgh in that game where, he snapped it from the circle and went like it was a perfect shot over the goalie's shoulder.
Right.
So he has to get his goals in other ways. But, I mean, he did it. But a lot of his goals came in a really, limited time this year. Kucherov similarly started slowly offensively, and he has gotten hotter and producing, but he's doing it as the power play continues to sputter along. I know they got 2 goals last night, but it's not really where I think the Lightning want it to be in terms of reliability to where they can lean on it. They need a goal, and the power play is going to come through because it kind of let them down, honestly, in the Kings game, even though they went 1 for 5, which, is 20%, and that's better than where they were coming in, so they improved their percentage. But after they scored in their first chance, they had multiple chances to get the game tied, and the power play didn't come through. So we'll see if that can improve moving forward. But I think why it's a little confounding to understand where the Lightning are, it's because, Point has not had a Point type of year. Kucherov has had a good year, but not a Kucherov type of year. They've been without Victor Hedman, who normally provides a lot of offense. The power play has not done what it normally does. And they still are where they are. Why? Well, in a lot of games, they're holding the other team to 2 or less. That's how you do it. And actually, that's a great formula.
Yeah.
But they've been able to do it as they have lost players to injury. So in some ways, it's even more impressive that these guys have come up from Syracuse, or they were on the team and they've gotten an expanded role. Think of Radish.
Yeah.
And they have come through with flying colors. And they've gotten so you're okay, Point hasn't had the year he's wanted. Bjorkstrand hasn't had the year he's wanted. Hedman hasn't had the year he's wanted because he's been out. But who has exceeded?
That's a fair point.
I mean, J.J. Moser.
It's a fair point.
J.J. Moser was going to be part of the top 4, but do we expect that J.J. Moser was going to have the first half of the season, let's say, because we're a few games away from the halfway point that he's had? Were we going to expect that Darren Radish was going to have 8 goals, 27 points?
No.
And do everything that he's done? We're going to expect that Destu was going to come out of nowhere and settle in.
No.
He's a top 4 defenseman for the Lightning. I mean, those are just 3 guys that I've just mentioned, right?
James.
The Gergensons, Holmberg, Gord.
That whole
unit.
line.
I think that they have been greater than the sum of their parts and greater than what the expectation was that they would be able to bring. We kind of looked at it as, will they chip in? Well, they have chipped in. Holmberg had a goal last night.
He did.
I mean, they're not up around 20 points, but their level of play has probably been better than what we were expecting going in because we didn't know how they'd work as a line. Holmberg was out for much of preseason, and Gergensons got hurt at the end of the preseason. Once they got put together, they've been a huge factor, a big factor in why the Lightning are where they are.
Yeah.
So I think it's
fair. That's fair.
It's defied some expectations. Some guys have been below expectations in terms of productivity, but other guys have been above expectations in terms of kind of what we thought of them going into the year, and some of that was born from opportunity because of all the injuries.
I actually think what you said is the most valid point, and it's one to keep in mind that maybe some other guys haven't been able to get on track that typically do, but the flip side is some other guys have seized those opportunities. Now, This is the only thing I'll say, and then we can get into the game if you want at Bolts Radio. This is the only thing I'll say to that point. I think in the regular season particularly, that's a good formula. You can have some guys who come up, play above expectations, while the other guys maybe are struggling a little bit, trying to find their game. In the playoffs, you will need Braden Point and Victor Hedman to be who they are. As you and I have discussed, the playoffs are a completely different animal. You do need your stars to play. And I am hopeful for that. That's why this is kind of exciting, because guys typically who have a track record of producing, they have an off few games, weeks. They typically get back to where they were. Or look, it's an anomaly. It's just an off year. Sometimes that does happen. But for Hedman, Point, Bjorkstrand, let's throw in Nick Paul just because he's been injured and trying to get started a little bit. I mean, those are 4 big guys. Hagel with the injury, so if you want to throw him in there, just kind of off and on. Those are 5 guys that arguably, for any team, would be integral parts of what they do. And for all of them, I refuse to believe those players will not eventually find their game. And I'll just keep it at that. Yeah. But you will need them. What they're doing now is amazing. Come playoff time, you are going to need those guys to show the rest of the world what we know and what they know. Those are elite players. And I think that has me excited. because they've also they've rounded out their team in many ways with depth and guys who've exceeded expectations, who maybe now have a standard or a level of play that we may consider to be the norm.
Yeah.
You know, the Radishes, the Mosers, some of these other guys that have performed well. Anyways, big picture there. And I'd be curious, let's ask our audience, because they can chime in heading into the break, heading into that game on Saturday. What's been the biggest surprise for you, maybe the most pleasant surprise for you so far in this Tampa Bay Lightning season? All right, game last night.
Yes.
Blues we talked about on the pregame in our show. They struggle to score. And you felt like, I think a lot of people felt like, you know, if you can get a lead, even a multi-goal lead, it may be difficult for them to come back. And the Lightning were able, partner, in the first period to get a couple of goals. And we talk about that fourth line. We talk about Radish. I mean, these are guys that are having good years. They were able to strike in the first. But what did you make of the game overall, and, you know, especially the Lightning able to jump out to an early lead? Kind of.
Well, the Lightning's first period was better than what the stats tell us. I mean, they scored 2 goals. They could have scored more than 2. I mean, Declan Carlisle was robbed by Binnington in between the 2 goals. And, you know, the Lightning only had 6 shots on net in the first period. I think that is very deceptive. Now, the attempts were more lopsided, 22-13 Tampa Bay. I thought the Lightning were in complete control in the first period and benefited from getting the 2-0 lead. Now, piggybacking on your point about, like, the breaks have not really gone the Lightning's way this year, I agree with that generally. I think certainly calls have not gone the Lightning's way when there's been something that's out of the hands of the players. It feels like it's basically gone in one direction, with the exception of that one goal that was allowed a couple of games ago. It was the Panther game where they scored and Maurice challenged and got it wrong. Other than that, I'm not sure that really that's gone the Lightning's way.
Yeah.
What has gone their way on occasion, I think it's gone more against them than for them, is, you know, deflected pucks going in the net. So we've seen that a couple of times. And it happened again last night where Radish took a shot. It was going wide of the net. It hit Falk and went in the net. But if you get a puck to the net, sometimes good things happen. That's what we were talking about with that Kings game where they had 77 shot attempts. And it's like all these shots were blocked. Well, sometimes a shot hits someone, goes wide. Sometimes a shot hits someone and goes in. That was a shot. If it doesn't touch Falk, it's wide of the net. So they got a little bit of a break there. But that one was a makeup, the hockey gods. That was a makeup for the Carlisle chance that Binnington stopped. He pulled a rabbit out of his hat on that one. I thought they had a great first period. I thought they deserved to be up. I thought they deserved to be up by multiple goals. The Blues didn't generate much last night. There were points where they had some decent possession time. I thought the Lightning hung in there pretty well. There was the occasional chance. I think they had one near the end of the first period. Vasi made a save. He also stopped Buchnevich early in the second on a grade A in the slot where he got over with his left skate. That might have been their, if it wasn't their most dangerous chance, it was certainly one of them. The Falk shot was a bomb. Yeah. He's got a great shot.
He does.
And he, by a wide margin, if you're not going to say Binnington, who I thought was a little unlucky, honestly, on some of the goals that he allowed and made some good saves. If you're not going to say Binnington, the best St. Louis player last night was Justin Falk. And whoever was picking the 3 stars made him a 3rd star. To the extent that I was at the game, I was not at the game with them, but they were at the game. My wife and daughter were at the game, and I saw them afterward. And my daughter was like, who got the 3rd star? And I'm like, yeah, he played for St. Louis. She's like, it's weird to see a visiting player get a star where the Lightning win the game 4-1 and really control. I said, Falk was good. Yes, they could have made all 3 stars Lightning players, but I have no quibble with the fact that Falk got a star. He had a goal. I think he had 9 shots, maybe 9 shot attempts. I guess I should qualify that before I say it. 9 shot attempts, 4 shots on net, and 1 went in. So Falk's shot is a bomb. It goes in, okay? But then the Lightning answer. And how many dangerous chances did the Blues have after Cirelli scored? Honestly, not many. So the Lightning were in control of the game. At the end of the night, the Blues did outshoot the Lightning 24-17. I think final shot attempts were very close to being even. I mean, the Blues made that up. In fact, I have 51-51 in case they may have changed it since last night. But that's ballpark. Metrically, they kind of got the stat balance closer to even, but some of that was score effects. The Lightning were like, we're up 3-1. We're not letting them get anything. And then it was 4-1. So I thought it was a very drama-free second half of the game. I thought it was a drama-free third period, which was nice to see because there have been some games where that hasn't been the case for the Lightning. And I thought it was a very solid, thorough win, a little bit of a taking care of business sort of win, even though this team, St. Louis, had come in maybe playing its best hockey of the year, 3-1-1 in the last 5. And, Jim Montgomery, their head coach, was like, we played really well in 4 of those 5 games, excluding the one that they didn't was the regulation loss. But the other games, they played well. And, the Lightning kind of took it to them. So that was good to see. It was another game in which they had Gord with Point and Kucherov, and Cirelli with Holmberg and Girgensons, and it was the Cirelli, Holmberg, Girgensons line that had the biggest influence on the game because they accounted for the 2 even strength goals that the Lightning scored. The thing I'll mention is I was wondering at the end of last night's show if we'd see a combo on D of Moser and McDonough. That did not happen, except in certain situations. I think they might have been out there on penalty kill together. At one point, the Blues never pulled the goalie. I mean, it was 4-1, and Montgomery was like, I'm not going to pull the goalie down 4-1. If we make it 4-2, maybe I will. They didn't. So it wasn't a situation where they were going to have the 5-on-6, where we might see Moser and McDonough, where they have these are our 2 best shutdown defensemen. We're putting them out there together in this situation. But again, it was McDonough, Destu, and Moser Radish, and I saw Brian Engblom during one of the intermissions. Because the previous game he was downstairs, so I didn't see him during the game. But last night he was upstairs. Yeah. So I said, what did you think about, Moser and McDonough at the end of the game? Did you think that he might switch John Cooper and Rob Zettler, who runs the D? He's like, Moser and Radish have been fantastic together. And he's right. You can look at these advanced stats, that show the pairs on D that have done the best. And it's not even too intricate. It's just like how many goals are being scored when they're out there, right?
Good point.
And Radish and Moser have been a great pair since they've been together, really since the Hedman injury took him out the first time. So, and even when he came back, Victor was playing with Crozier, and they didn't separate Moser and Radish. So, given that kind of logic, it makes sense that, okay, Radish didn't have a great first period against Carolina. And at the end of the game, when Carolina pulled the goalie, they had Moser and McDonough together. But they had McDonough again with Destu, so they kept that the same. And I thought Crozier and Carlisle had a really solid game.
I mean, how many goals could have Carlisle,
Could have had 3. 2 for sure. Like, he hit the post, and then Bennington robbed him.
Great
and
save.
I'll just point this out. I like James Gonsalves and Finley as a line. Finley took another penalty. If he keeps taking penalties,
he's not going to play.
Right.
He's not going to play. Right.
He needs to be careful there. Phil didn't like the penalty. Like the one he took against Carolina, that was a high stick.
Yeah.
That's going to get called. The one last night, Phil wasn't crazy about the call, not the play, but he didn't like some calls that St. Louis was whistled for either, and he felt that the Finley, I think it was a hold. He's like, that's a makeup call. Be that as it may, it's still another penalty. Having said all of that, I thought that line had some jump again.
Yeah, they did.
And in fact, James could have had 2 assists on the 2 Carlisle plays.
You're right.
Like if Carlisle scores on both of those, James has 2 assists.
2 more points.
Finley has 1 assist because Finley had the pass to Carlisle, and I don't know who would have had the second assist. It might have been Gonsalves on the one that hit the post. So that was a solid performance again, second game in a row that they've looked good as a line. I don't know what's going to happen when they take on the Panthers. Are we going to see a recall of Sabourin again? Are the Lightning going to go with kind of a rugged lunch pail line that has actually done pretty well against the Panthers? We'll see. But if Coop is being Coop and I like the way our lineup is playing, regardless of the opponent, I'm going to keep it the same. he may do that too. And Hagel might be back.
If Sabrin gets recalled or is playing on the game against the Panthers coming out of the break, does that give you an idea of what the mindset is for the coaching staff for Tampa Bay?
Well, look,
I just want to make sure
you can draw the direct line. You can draw the direct line again from the preseason, which is, the preseason game was a little different because both teams sat regulars. So the Lightning needed to field a lineup. Let's remember, Sabrin wasn't the only guy they called up, and Roman Schmidt wasn't the only guy they called up. They called up a whole bunch of other guys, too, who were not involved in fights. So I think they called up, 6 players from Syracuse to play in that game. And then many of them went back. Anyway, I think if Sabrin is in the lineup, it's not they called up Scott Sabrin to target Panther players, which is, I think, the way the Panthers and maybe the league interpreted that preseason game.
Well, we know the Panthers interpreted it.
Right. But, look, let's be honest. Sabrin did target Ekblad. He blasted him on a check, and then he fought him. Right.
Yeah, right.
That was a response to what Ekblad did to Hagel in the playoffs last year. The other games, though, maybe that first meeting, the Lightning were like, we want to have Sabrin up, but the Lightning had called up Sabrin prior to that game. He scored against the Rangers. They've liked how Sabrin has played for them. And it's not only that they've liked how Sabrin has played for them. I would make the argument that the Lightning's most effective line in 2 games against the Florida Panthers has been the fourth line, which is different in the 2 games. Finley, Douglas, and Sabrin, they were the Lightning's best line in their win in Sunrise. And Finley had the game-winning goal. And then it was Paul, Douglas, and Sabrin in a less impressive performance. The Lightning got outplayed, as we talked about. But of the lines the Lightning had, that line was able to do some stuff in the offensive zone and make the Panthers have to defend because they play in a straight line and they are extremely physical. So Coop may look at this next game and be like, what people think, to heck with that. I don't care what people think. I know the lineup that will give us the best chance to handle what the Panthers do to us and try to do to us, and that involves playing these big, strong, physical guys who play in a straight line, deliver checks, win pucks, keep it simple, and force the Panthers to play defense.
Yeah.
And if the league has a problem with us playing Scott Sabrin or the Panthers have a problem with us playing Scott Sabrin, too bad.
Well, we know
now the other side of the coin is the team has won 2 straight with Douglas not in the lineup, with Sabrin not in the lineup, with this line that has done a lot of good things. I'm talking about the Finley line with not Finley, Douglas, Sabrin, but Finley, James, Gonçalves, which is a much different sort of line. We'll see.
Listen, it's a fair point, everything you just said, so I'm going to give people a prediction. I think one of those guys, meaning Douglas or Sabrin, need to be in the lineup. I think you need one, because I don't trust the Panthers to not do anything. Listen, there's a body of work that I have seen from them, not just with the Lightning, but with other teams, that they can play over the edge, over the line. So I need somebody that if it gets to that point, partner, you have to have somebody on the ice. Look, that's why you have Sabrin and Douglas in your organization. Okay? I'm not condoning the actions of anybody. I'm simply saying, and I would think the old guard may agree with this take, the ones who believe fighting really has a place in the game, and I think you need to have somebody out there. I think you can't forget, too, what has happened to some of your players, specifically Hagel, and the fact that we have seen the Panthers do some things that have crossed the line. Who's to say they don't take more liberties if you don't have those enforcers in the lineup come Saturday? So it's more as a protection. Understanding that Douglas and Sabrin, part of this, too, is the reason why I'm comfortable saying that they can be in the lineups, because I think they've shown they can play. Probably Sabrin a little bit more than Douglas, but I don't think both of them are going to be in the lineup because that would take away from the guys who are really playing well right now, and I do think you have to take that into consideration. But look, partner, I'd hate to see a situation where the Lightning are playing really well. It's 4-1 in the third period, and all of a sudden now we're we're seeing some trips, we're seeing some elbows, and
Yeah.
you don't have anybody there. Cirelli's having to answer for it, and he can handle his business, but I don't want him to if he doesn't have to.
Right.
So that's kind of where I am. It's more about what the Panthers have done than the
Well,
Lightning
it's not
doing
just
something.
It's not just to the Lightning. Now look, the Panthers don't. I'm not sure the Panthers do this to the extent that they do it, and they do it a lot against the Lightning. Let's be honest. Right. I mean, and maybe there's a little bit of, you give and you get, right? I mean, the Lightning also have some snarl when they play the Panthers.
No, for sure.
Fair enough. Like we talked about Crozier hitting Rodriguez with the glove, although I think that was different than Greer popping Hagel. Anyway, be that as it may. When the Panthers play the Anaheim Ducks, I'm not sure that there's the same level of animosity. Let's use that word.
Yeah, right.
Now, they played the Kings, and was it Kempe? Kempe took a punch to the head from Greer when he was down on the ice. But Greer was kind of like, he's here, so I'm going to punch him, but I'm not really putting my heart into it. He kind of punched him and skated away. Carolina is a different matter. The Carolina-Florida dynamic, and remember I mentioned Carolina is going to go into that game at Florida very motivated.
Right.
They dislike the Panthers too, because the Panthers knocked them out of the semifinals 2 of the last 3 years in fairly decisive fashion. In the first meeting, all 4 games were close. The Panthers won every game. Last year, I think it was actually a less close series, even though Carolina ended up winning a game. But at that point, Florida was up 3-0. So Carolina has a burn at saddle about Florida. And so what happened in that game? It kind of was unfolding in the first 50 minutes, as you might expect, where Carolina is like, we are not happy with what happened last year, and we are going to take it to you. And they were up 3-0 with 10 minutes left, and then it completely unraveled on them. And some of it was the Panthers started doing the stuff that the Panthers do. It may have happened earlier in the game, but there was no question. Brad Marchand jabbed Bussy, the goalie, between the legs. And then seconds later, he scored. I was actually surprised Brind'Amour Moore didn't challenge that for goalie interference, because there's no question that play had an impact on the goal being scored. So that was one. Jacob Slavin gets boarded by Greer, and no penalty is called. Slavin leaves the game for a portion of the third period, does come back, and then the play in overtime, where Rodriguez trips Seth Jarvis, and Jarvis goes into the post and is injured. And you might say, well, was there intent there? I've talked to a few people about it. Some people are like, it was a trip, should have been a penalty. The fact that there was no penalty called hurt Carolina because it didn't go in the power play, but the injury would have, if a penalty was called, the injury would have been the same. The play was the play. That's kind of what we talk about when a player is knocked out of a game and they're like, why wasn't there a penalty called? Suspend. Like the impact is done. Jarvis was hurt. So they didn't call even a penalty, which was a disgrace. That was a trip. However you want to look at it, he got tripped. There should have been a penalty. Should have been more than a minor. Should Rodriguez have been suspended? It doesn't take away from the fact that Jarvis is hurt. And he was hurt on a needless trip. He didn't have to trip him there. He was trying to go to the net. He could have wedged him off a different way. I'm not sure that was like a breakaway or is denying a scoring chance, but some people feel there was intent. Like it was basically a two-handed slash to the skate because it was forceful. So if you're Carolina, and now we've heard Slavin is out weeks. That was what Brind'Amour Moore said. Well, we were told because he didn't play against the Lightning the next night that it was more like he just missed 28 games, Greg. He's their best defenseman. He is their McDonough, a younger McDonough. He is their everything on the blue line. Mm-hmm. So he got hurt like in the third game of the year. He missed 28. He's just back. He's playing his third or fourth game, and he gets run at by Greer. So originally we had heard it's a back-to-back. They're going to kind of let him get the second night off as he's working his way back in. Now we hear, it was the check. He's going to be out. How do you think Carolina feels about that? They play tonight in Raleigh. Jarvis out long-term. Slavin out long-term because of what the Panthers did, basically. So the Lightning are the only team.
No,
and we'll see what happens tonight.
I
think Carolina is going into that game feeling like the Lightning did after the preseason game where Hagel got sucker punched.
I actually like the fact that the first game out of the break is against the Panthers.
Yeah.
Because I think it immediately grabs your attention.
Right.
And immediately.
That was what Doug Plagans was saying about for the Panthers, the end of a long road trip.
Yeah, it's a good point. And it was a good point. I think the same could be said for the Lightning. So, very hopeful. A couple of other observations about the game, and then I want to get to some questions. By the way, tonight, enjoy some Refrum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a tropical wave or a lightning mule and taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts and enjoy responsibly. The Darren Radish season continues, and how about the play he made on the first goal?
Yes.
We talk about these subtle little plays. It was an act of desperation to keep that puck in, but the ability to keep it in, partner, and then to get it towards the net, that's a high-level play. And we talk about Darren Radish. This is for people to debate, and I'm fine with that conversation. He's an older player, so maybe it swings in this way that I'm about to present to you. When do you look at this and say, okay, this is the real Darren Radish? How many games into a season can you fully look at a player and say, yeah, you know what? Sometimes for players, if they have a good 25 games, you want to sit there and say, let's wait and see what happens. Kind of like Gage Gonsalves, right? Gage Gonsalves had a good second half of last year. This year, it's been a little more up and down. I'm not sure people know exactly what you have there. You could say the same thing with Darren Radish. The difference maybe is he's a little bit older. Is he starting to just come into his own right now, and he's getting the playing time, and this is who he is, which ends up being really a top 6 defenseman, and maybe in some instances a top 4, depending on who he's playing with. I mean, this is a great story. 3 points last night.
So I think for a lot of players, all players want to play more, right?
Yes.
Some players are given too much, though. Like, you hear that. It's like this player is playing probably 2 to 3 to 4 more minutes than they should, and it's getting to them, right? Their effectiveness is going down. It's like a bell curve, right? Like, a lot of players have trouble really being impactful if they're only playing a few shifts a game, but they play regularly. They're going to get into a rhythm. You want to find their peak. And then at some point, for most players, if you overplay them,
right,
it's going to come down the other side of the bell, right? I think Darren Radish is one of these players, the more you give him in this instance this year, the more he has gotten, the more he has thrived. And so you're like, well, why is that? And I think for him, it seems to be related to security in his role. So his role is a very important role. He's playing he's playing in the top 4 for sure. And he's done that before. He's played with Victor Hedman. So he's gotten minutes and he's gotten important assignments before. We just talked about like the matchups that he's gotten playing with Moser have been critical matchups. So he's doing a lot of good work without the puck, which probably was the one area of his game because he's always had a hard shot and he's always had the puck skills. That has kind of been the area of his game maybe that has really like made this whole stretch the chef's kiss, as I say, because he's doing a lot of things that, had he been doing them more, he may have gotten more ice time. Who knows? That may be a little unfair because there were guys just ahead of him that were going to probably play more than him when he was coming up. But he seems to be one of these players who the more you give him, the more his game has grown. And I think it's due to confidence in his role. He knows he's going to be in that particular pairing. He knows he's going to be on the first power play. He's gotten, and when I say comfortable, I don't mean it in a bad way, like put your feet up on the ottoman comfortable. Comfortable, like secure, right? And I think that has really benefited him. And he's rewarding the Lightning with his best hockey in the NHL. And you're like, okay, he's not a younger defenseman. That's true, but he's still 29. He's going to turn 30 in February. I mean, to me, he's in his prime. So if you're thinking about, like, do the Lightning re-sign him? Like, how much stock do they put in to this sample size? That's up to Julian, of course. And, we'll see. Darren Radish might be like, and this is something one of the fans had mentioned, Darren Radish might be like, I'm a UFA. I want to see what's out there. Who knows? Those are questions for down the road. Right now, it is clear that he is giving the Lightning tremendous hockey. And I think it's tied to he's got his plate out, right? And they're like, fill up my plate. What did he say to Brian Engblom? Play me, right? So they have, and he has responded.
It's a good point.
So the play he made at the blue line, I know I said this a short while ago when we compared it with players who, like, the puck explodes off their stick. It was like a grenade on his stick. Like, certain players, it's a little difficult for them. I mean, they can handle the puck. Certainly they're playing the NHL, but some guys, they have to almost battle through that to make sure the puck is calm on their stick. They have other assets, whether it's speed or playmaking or shot, whatever. Radish is the complete opposite. And I think that's always been the case. The puck is very calm on his stick. He's able to stop pucks that are coming at him with velocity and control it. That's a skill. Kucherov does it probably better than anybody in the NHL. But Radish can do it. That puck is like he's looking to hold the blue line. The puck is coming at him with some zip to it. He can knock it down. We had a guy in Hershey, and I don't think he ever played in the NHL.
Yeah.
And he was also a smaller defenseman. He was an offensive defenseman. Probably late 90s, early 2000s is when he played for Hershey. When I got to know him really well, he'd been a pro player before that, and he had a little bit of time after he left the Bears. His name was Mike Gall, French-Canadian. Actually, Mark Lambert, our strength and conditioning coach, knows him well. When I was like, I mentioned him. He's like, oh, yeah, I know Mike Gall. Anyway, Mike Gall was as good as anyone I had seen up until that point at doing just that. Like, he could just knock down pucks at the offensive blue line, hold them in. It was incredible. Like, it is a skill. Not everybody can do it. Radish can do it. I mean, there are certain guys who are really good at it. John Carlson can do it. Carlson is fantastic at it. It's hard to get the puck past him at the point unless you're putting it, high in the air. If it's along the ice, he can get his stick to the puck. A lot of times he's stopping it and controlling it. It's not just that he's stopping it. If a puck hits a stick blade, it's going to ricochet, right? These guys have an ability to stop the puck and control it at the same time. Very hard to do. Radish can do that. But I think he's always had that in his wheelhouse.
It's funny.
But it was a key part to that. It was a key part to that goal that was scored last night.
This is a separate topic, but maybe related to a degree because it talks about the Eastern Conference and how far Toronto has fallen. Of course, they just let go one of their assistant coaches.
Yeah, recently, who runs the power play.
And so the Athletic did a whole feature on why Austin Matthews is struggling this year, and they had 5 points. And the last one, I think, is probably the greatest one for me, not knowing his situation, if he's still healthy or not, is the fact that Mitch Marner is out. He's no longer playing. I think that does have an effect. Now, they get into some of these metrics, partner, that you and I, high danger chances. Is it the system? Is it, he's unlucky? I'm sure part of that plays into it, but Austin Matthews, I think, is one of the top 5 players in the game. I love the way he plays. Not only offensively, I think he's a really good back checker. I just think he's an elite player. He's having a down year. There's no question about it. The one thing they brought up in the article, which is very interesting, it was when a player is in the prime of their career. And this article, I'd have to go back and read it in terms of, did they give some analysis of what that age is? And it was, for them, typically 23 to 26.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Matthews is beyond that age. It compared like the 4 top players of this generation once they got to 28 and beyond, and looked at their production. 2 of them, and it was interesting just because it was, I think Taves was one of them, Crosby, Malkin, and there were a couple of other players. All produced still at a very high level, but you could tell that their numbers dropped a little bit. And maybe that is an interesting question. Not that he's past his prime, he's not, but is that something that you have to take a little bit more into consideration when it comes to players and their production? Like we talk about the Lightning, and I think they're just unlucky here. I think injuries have hit them to a degree, which is why we're seeing some inconsistent play. But if this article is going to suggest that Austin Matthews may be starting to level out a little bit, that is one of the great mysteries, I think, as a GM, is how do you evaluate your team and players specifically when they do hit a certain age? And they've got a lot of miles on them.
I don't know.
It was interesting.
What did you say, 23 to 26?
26, yeah.
So by that logic, look, the two guys we just talked about, McKinnon and McDavid, are older than that. I mean, McDavid is what? Because he's 97 birthday. That's his number, right? So he's 28.
Yeah.
And McKinnon's older than that. McKinnon, I think, is a 95
he's 30.
birthday.
I think he's 30.
He's 30. Like, I mean,
they're rolling.
Yes, they
obviously.
were producing between 23 and 26. Kucherov
32
is producing, yeah. And like some of his most productive years have happened after he was 26. I mean, 18-19 was his greatest offensive year, right? He would have been just 26 that year, or 25 that year. But I mean, he's been incredibly productive since then too. So I'm not sure I completely buy that.
Now, look, in fairness, those guys may be the outlier, though.
Maybe the outlier. Right,
maybe
but Matthews should be an outlier, too. Matthews should be an outlier. So I don't have the analytics at my disposal, nor did I read this article. This is what I will say about Austin Matthews, whose greatest asset his greatest asset is his shot. He's got one of the best shots in the NHL. He can score from anywhere, basically. He's got a lot of other things that he does really, really well, too. But his shot, coupled with his size, which is kind of what I'm going to get to here, and his skating, but his shot is elite plus, okay? So if you have a player who's got an elite plus shot, you might think, okay, he needs somebody to get him the puck. And that's where the Marner argument kind of starts holding some water. Like if you're pulling out a facilitator, how is this player going to generate, right? And we've seen players who really lean on a teammate to get them the puck in an area where they can use their shot, okay? I think Matthews, based on his skating and his size, has shown, I'm not saying this because, I'm looking at him and I'm like, this is what I think. I've seen him do it. He can create opportunities all by himself. Like, he can get going like McKinnon can get going. When he wants to take over a game, I shouldn't say wants, when he takes over a game, he is the best player on the ice, and he is very, very hard to contain. He doesn't need somebody as a facilitator to get him the puck. So I have no idea what's going on with him this year. Maybe it is an injury. Maybe he's just in a rut. Maybe, who knows? Things just aren't happening for him. And, that is affecting his confidence, which is certainly possible. But the Austin Matthews that I have seen in the NHL, you would figure, should be able to do a lot of the things that he has done, even if Mitch Marner is no longer on his line and a teammate of his. That's one person's opinion. Clearly, the analytics tell a little bit of a different story. If the Marner absence is one of the 5 reasons. Would having Marner help? Yes, for sure. Because Marner is a great facilitator. He's another guy who's very good with his stick, like intercepting pucks and snapping them out of the air and controlling them. But to me, Matthews is in a class of very few people where he can basically single-handedly just take over a game because he's so big and so strong and so fast, and he's got that shot.
I agree.
Anyway.
So it was an interesting, you had mentioned Radish. We've kind of talked about guys. And I think also, too, today, with players and how well-conditioned they are, you may have to extend the prime age, probably raise it a little bit, because guys are in phenomenal shape.
Yes.
So are you able to kind of ward off Father Time a little bit more today than you were, 15, 20 years ago? Anyways, that was an interesting observation. I think the amazing part is with Radish, the Lightning, when everybody's healthy, and I understand that is a big if, what does that back end look like? To me, that is going to be, in addition to like, what are they going to do with face-offs and power play, if they're going to address any of that.
You've still got a few defensemen who are injured who at some point are going to be coming back. Hedman, Chernak, Lilleberg, among, those are the
Everybody
three,
forgets
basically.
Lilleberg.
Yeah.
But
I mean, they're not coming back anytime soon, it sounds
No.
like. I mean, I have not seen Chernak on the ice. So,
that is correct.
And we know Lilleberg and Hedman are out probably through much of January. So there's no immediate answer to this question, which is a favorite question of our fans and one that we bandy about on this show. Like, what is going to happen when? So you may not have to make a hard decision if somebody else ends up getting hurt. We'll see. But they are part of the team. Right. And so as it relates to kind of looking ahead, and maybe we can kind of put a bow on this.
Yeah, good.
Figuratively and literally as we're approaching Christmas. Okay, of the blue line the Lightning have right now, I'm going to mention 3 guys who need new contracts next year. Radish is a UFA. Destu is a UFA. He only signed a 1-year deal. And Moser is a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. Right now, if you were to ask me and you're going to give me Julian's seat, I'm getting these 3 guys re-signed. Moser is getting re-signed. The question is, can they find a number of years and dollar number where they can avoid any kind of arbitration and just get this thing done? The other 2 guys have options, right? So,
do you believe in the contract year push? The guys
not for Destu.
Perform well.
Destu is coming to the NHL. He's like, I need to prove myself. So maybe that is kind of, but I think that would be the case if he were on a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal. Radish, it's just a different situation. He was scratched 6 of the first 13. Now, one of those he missed because the birth of his child. But the other games, he was a lineup decision scratch. And it's not like he came roaring out of the gates and, was popping in goal after goal after goal after goal. Now, he had the lack of opportunity, too, right? I mean, he scored against New Jersey in the second game of the year, but he wasn't seeing time in the top power play unit. He wasn't getting the top defensive minutes and these responsibilities. So some of it was what was he being given? But, yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that he is elevating because it's a contract year. I think he's elevating because he's getting the chance.
Yeah.
More so. That's my take on it.
We can end with this. Bill says, do you guys think Hagel will be ready to go on Saturday?
Well, he is skating, and I guess yesterday he skated in a regular jersey. So that's a good indication that he's starting to feel better. We'll see. The question is, would the Lightning hold him out because it's the Panthers? And I really don't think, if he's ready to play, I think they're going to play him. Yeah,
I think he's going to play.
The question is, will he be ready to play? And when you're dealing with, let's be honest, he took a check. So without knowing for certain, it seems to be logical that they're waiting for him to feel right after absorbing that check. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer. The fact that he was on a regular jersey is a sign that he's feeling better. But the Lightning are not going to rush him back if he still is experiencing some symptoms. We don't have the answer to that question, Greg, to give the fans. We'll have to wait and see.
Listen to me. I don't know what to make of this, and we can put a bow on it. I think if Hagel does play, you need somebody in the lineup just to be there in case something crazy happens. I will say this.
Stella making an appearance here.
Hello, Stella.
I want to be on the camera.
I want to hear what Greg says. Hold on.
Yes. She's like, no, I just want to be petted. You've been talking long enough, Dad.
I'm interested to see if Hagel is in the lineup and the Panthers continue to target him.
Yeah,
because I think that's a problem. Because now it's become over the top, and now you're impacting a guy's career in many ways. So it's one thing to get, body check, open ice hits. It's another thing if you start targeting somebody's head. That's a problem. And I don't know how you police that, honestly, other than you just hope that the Panthers behave to a degree, and let's have some guys in the lineup. And if that does happen, I mean, at that point, the damage would be done if they take a swing or a liberty again at Hagel. So, all right. Stella says we're done.
Yes.
I think Stella says we're done. We are done.
Yes.
Well, look, we want
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes,
Stella
you too.
says.
We want to wish
Merry
everybody
Christmas.
a very Merry Christmas. She's like, come on, Dad, let's go.
Am I getting like a Chewy for Christmas? Probably.
Now, do you spoil
Probably
your dogs?
something.
Do you spoil your dogs for Christmas?
Spoil is the wrong word. They get some stuff, but I don't think that because we have 2 dogs,
You do?
3 cats, so we got a veritable. I shouldn't say Noah's Ark. I don't have like aardvarks walking around in the. Well, Noah had to start at the beginning of the alphabet.
Noah had
Aardvark
everything.
was probably the
That's
first
right.
one, right?
That's right.
No, they get some stuff. They're just happy to be around people.
Although
they
the
do, the
biggest
dogs
gift,
do
right?
like treats. I mean,
Yeah.
most dogs get very
Most
excited.
people like
when-
treats, right?
Yes, that is for
That's
sure.
not a bad thing.
We should probably, before we sign off, actually inform the fans about our schedule.
Please do.
Because we bandy this about. So we are off through the holiday. The Lightning are off until the 27th. That is a weekend. And the Lightning play the 27th and 28th. And we talked about it. We are not having a show on the 27th and the 28th. So our next show will be the 29th, which is in 6 days. So we'll recap the 2 games, Panthers and Canadians. That's a departure day for the Lightning. We head out to California an extra day early because the New Year's Eve game against Anaheim is in the afternoon, if that makes sense. So we'll be back at it the week of the 29th, but even that week with New Year's Eve afternoon game, New Year's Day, everything going on, we're going to have a fragmented schedule that week as well. But we will be back on the 29th. And we'll have a lot to talk about because we'll have 2 games to recap.
Well, I will talk to you Saturday, if not before then.
Yes, we'll
But
talk
Merry
on the
Christmas
broadcast.
And happy holidays
To you and yours,
family.
yes.
Enjoy it. And
I hope the little Linnellis are running around
getting ready. They're
excitedly.
Oh, so when they're that age, that's the best
Yes.
time in many ways. It's
It's basically like, I shouldn't say a garbage truck, but it's like the garbage,
garbage
truck,
truck.
where it like just dumps everything under the tree.
It's
right?
a garbage truck, and
it
then
goes
that has
into
the garbage bag.
eventually. Yes.
Yes, it does eventually. And Enzo, I think,
We
is
always
just
had the
gonna-
bags, so like,
Yeah.
okay, we're recycling the paper,
Yeah.
and here's the garbage bag, and like
Yeah.
you always fill up the bags as they're opening the presents, right?
It's incredible. So it's a fun time.
Yes. Is
but-
Enzo at the age where it's like, ooh, Santa, or it's like, what is happening? I'm
I
not quite
think
sure,
he-
but I think this is pretty cool.
He's getting there. He's
Yeah.
aware. I think he's just going to tear open gifts and probably just play with the wrapping paper at this point, which that'll be a lot of fun for him. But it'll be fun. We'll take some pictures, and then you and I will be at it. We'll talk on Saturday, which should be a lot of fun.
Yes.
And then back at it on Monday. But again, happy holidays to you and yours, and to our audience. We appreciate you
Absolutely.
guys so much. Spend that time with the fam. Enjoy yourselves. We'll be back at it on Monday. Steve Versnick, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Jared Johnston as well. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.